Hello, everyone, and welcome to Sharin Stories. I'm your host, Peaks, with my two beautiful co hosts, Sarah States and Paul Christian. This is not a therapy session. You will not find mental health professionals here, nor are we a substitute for said people. We are just people sharing our stories with mental health. Today, we welcome Garrett, an NYU graduate who is now a performer in New York City. On top of that, we are told by friends that he has a presence that can light up any room while being both an empathetic and caring human with the ability to make anyone laugh. So, without further ado, let's hear his story ourselves. Everybody, welcome Garrett Wilson. Thanks a lot, Garrett.
Woo!
Let's go, Garrett.
Hi, guys.
All right, so just because I didn't do it enough justice, give yourself a little 2-minute introduction before we get started into the real stuff.
Okay, no worries. Hi, my name is Garrett Wilson. I'm 23. I'm currently living in New York City, but I'm originally from North Carolina, the city of Greensboro. But I actually grew up in a town called Madison. So very Southern boy at heart, but moved all the way to NYC. Just living life, waiting till the arts open back up. But I'm very excited to be here today. I've been looking forward to this for a long time.
We are very excited to have you. Like I said, I've heard a lot of good things, and I mean, before this even started, you already made me laugh through some text messages. So I'm feeling like it's
I
going to
may
be
have
pretty
shared
good.
a couple things.
I feel like it's going to be pretty good. I feel like it's going to be a good time, and I feel like there's going to be just a interesting story here. So if you want to just take it away, we'll throw ourselves on mute and give yourself the chance to talk.
All right, perfect. All right, let's hope this goes well. So like I said, my name is Garrett. I was born and raised in North Carolina in the mid part of the state towards the top. It was very interesting growing up in the South. I don't think I really had a very traditional upbringing there because I grew up in a town where the population is probably around 2,500 people. Like everybody knows everybody. Everybody grew up together. Their parents grew up together. But both my parents are from Michigan, so they moved to this town when my mom was pregnant with me. So my parents did not know anybody here. They were not born and raised here. So we were always kind of known as the new family in town. So I was raised in an environment of super traditionally conservative values, in like the Christian sense. Is like that was my environment, but my parents are so liberal and they have just such different ethics and morals than the people that I grew up around, it was just such an interesting experience that I'm so thankful for now. But growing up, it always caused such a whirlwind of like mind games and personal ethics that I would hold. But we'll get to that in a second. But yeah, I grew up in the South, had very, very strong relationships with my family. All while I was growing up, I had a very strong relationship with my grandma and my grandpa, but specifically my grandma. She installed so many lessons that I've carried with me through life until this very day. We were like best friends, so it was always so nice to have somebody to go to and just ask so many questions to, because I never asked her any questions in fear. I always asked her questions just because I felt like she was such a safe place to go to for things like that. I grew up always knowing that I was different. It wasn't until I was probably around like 10 or 11 that I realized what the difference was. But I always kind of knew that I was gay, but I never really was brave enough to label it or even conjure up that word until like the later the later years of my life, which caused a huge struggle in the more teen years, I would say. Definitely, it definitely brought in a lot of depression and anxiety, which I had never experienced before. Yes, and that will be a huge part of my personal story in a little bit. But I want to start out young. When I was in second grade, I was diagnosed with Tourette's syndrome. And it was a very hard time because I had never heard of that, nor had my parents ever heard of that. It started out in a very strange way. Like, we just noticed that I would blink a lot, because Tourette syndrome has been such a big part of my life, and it's helped me overcome so many obstacles that focused around Tourette's, but it's helped me create habits that have helped me through life, through school, through college, through work. It just helps me in everyday kind of form. But yes, my parents took me to this specialist in Raleigh, North Carolina. I started out with this habit. I would just nonstop blink all the time, and my parents thought, maybe he's playing his Game Boy too much, or maybe he's watching too much TV. But they took me to the doctor, and I had to undergo a lot of tests, and they clinically diagnosed me with moderate Tourette syndrome. And they said that most likely I would grow out of it as I got older. Thankfully, I have grown out of it, not fully, but like very, very much so, almost. But yeah, through life, I would always find these new tics. And for those who don't know, a tic is it's like a really instinctive action that your body just does, almost like when you just instinctively blink or take a breath. It's just like, that's what the tic is. It just happens. You just do it. And I didn't have any severe ones that are super like stereotypically coincided with Tourette's. Like, I didn't like blurt out curse words or anything like that. I think that's like super, super severe Tourette syndrome. But I definitely I had a lot of like physical tics. Like, I would twitch a lot and have these little like mannerisms. Like, I would click my neck all the time. But it really helped me to focus in on habits such as like being calm and really trying to focus my mind on certain things that bring me like serenity in order to really subdue those tics. Because kids would ask all the time, and when I was younger, when people would ask about it, it would make me really self-conscious and I would get really upset about it. But as I got older, I realized that some people just ask because they have no idea what it is. But yeah, that was a huge part of my upbringing, was dealing with that because I did not know another kid who had Tourette's. So that was a big part of my childhood. And I think that it got easier through time. It kind of started to fade a little bit in middle school, and it definitely had faded towards high school. But funny enough, it actually came back kind of severely when I first got to college. I think because I was surrounded by so much new environment and so many new people, I think my nervous system was just like overwhelmed with new stimuli. And I think, and it happens when I get really excited or really nervous about something. That's when they tend to come back. So it was like adapting to an entirely new environment with that. I've actually found a lot of joy in my Tourette's. I think it's so hard to explain. I don't know why I found so much joy, but I think it's almost like a game, like what new tic is, because I had so many different ones growing up, and it's like what new tic is gonna pop up and what new tic is gonna go away. It was just like this battle, almost, and I would have to figure out different ways in order to subdue each one. But yeah, when I was in high school, I think like ninth grade, I like knew that I was gay. And that was a huge, huge battle, as I'm sure so many people who have had coming out stories, or even people who haven't still and are dealing with these emotions know. But I thought I was surrounded by so much love and so many friends and stuff who would support me through anything. And when I was a sophomore in high school, I remember sitting my mom down and I told her, I was like, I think I'm gay. And she was like, okay. And it was just this like, okay, so what are we having for dinner kind of conversation. And I think that the casualness of that conversation really freaked me out, because I felt like it was supposed to be this big thing. And I think the very next day when I was at school, I texted her and I was like, I'm not gay. Like, don't worry. Like, I'm really not. And she was like, oh, okay. But if you are, like, it's okay. You don't have to try to, hide anything. And so it wasn't until I was like almost a senior in high school that I actually came out to myself. And I held it in for knowing I was gay, but not saying it out loud or to anyone else. I held that in for like a year, and it was probably one of the darkest years of my life. I never knew what depression was until then. I just felt so trapped and so alone all the time, which also brought guilt because I felt so guilty because I had parents and family members who I knew would accept me, but it was just like such a struggle of me accepting myself. And even to this day, I'm not really sure why I had trouble accepting myself. I don't know if it was just like coming into my own, or like the transition between like teenager to young adult. I still don't know why I had such a battle with myself. But the show Glee, actually, it's so cliche. Like, actually really, really helped me come out. Like, that show was just everything. And like all the songs, all the characters, I was just like, this is it. Okay? This is it. And through like the 25 seasons of that show, I was finally like, okay, Mom, I'm gay. And she was like, okay, I knew it all along. And it was just this beautiful moment. But it was like a reverse of what I had expected versus what happened. Like, I knew my family would accept me, but there's always kind of with it. And so I knew that my family would accept me, but there was always that what if in my brain. But in my mind, I was, where did we leave off?
Just go with everybody. You knew a lot of people would accept you.
Okay, yeah. So I knew that my family was going to be very accepting of anything, but there was always that what if in my brain, because your family is like forever, like family's permanent, so you have to worry about that forever. But my friends, I was like, oh, I have the best friends in the world. Like, they're gonna accept me for who I am, especially because like I'm in theater and choir. Like, like that's where we go. That's where the gays go. And when I came out, it was so the opposite. Like, I had so many friends that just like completely took my story and made it about themselves. And like, it was a very interesting, strange experience. It's almost like I just went through like so many breakups. Like, I had one friend, and she was like my best friend, and she was like, you knew that I liked you, and you did this on purpose, and like you made me have to go to therapy, and you did it because you knew I was an easy target, like blah blah. It was just like this whole thing, and I was like, what? Because her initial reaction was, like, oh, I'm so proud of you, like, why didn't you tell me before? And then I had another friend who I think he also now has come out, but I think in the moment he was like, I don't know if just insecure or jealousy or what, but he shunned me away because I had finally come out to myself and felt brave enough to speak my truth to the world. And he hadn't done that yet. And I think that he felt maybe he couldn't be around that because it would just be too much on him, which I don't blame him for. And we've spoken since, and he's a very, very lovely boy. But yeah, that was a huge part of my upbringing. And it was the timing was almost like it was so meant to be by the universe, because I came out to my parents and to those around me that I felt
stop at, well, maybe like
your friend who's just came out, you just told us he was good, and then kind of moved on from there.
Okay.
Yeah, good.
Oh yes. Okay, I was talking about how the timing was so aligned with the universe. I felt like it was what was meant to happen. Okay. Okay, so when I officially came out to my parents, like my my mom and my dad. It was like middle towards the end of my senior year of high school. And I told the people around me that I wanted to know. So it wasn't a huge amount of people, but it was the amount that I was like, okay, I feel good about this. Who needs to know knows. And I have such little time left in this small town before I feel like my life is actually going to begin. So it was almost like I like spoke who I was, and then my life started. So I originally never was, I didn't super get into performing in like theater until I was in high school. Like until then I was a very academic based student. And even like when I was applying to colleges, I only applied to like 3 or 4 colleges for performing. The rest were all for academia. And NYU had always just been a school that I was like, oh my God, like that's the school in New York City. Now I know that there's like so many other amazing institutions in New York City. But when I was little, I was like, if it's called New York University, like there's not another school. And so it was just always like a college that I was like, and I always knew that I was going to live in New York City. I couldn't tell you how I was going to, when I was going to, but I knew I was going to. And so NYU was one of the schools that I applied to for performing because I was like, that's one that you have to because it's in New York City. Like, come on. So I applied to NYU. And I actually messed up my application so bad. I accidentally applied as a master's student. And so I get this email, and it was like, you're invited for this in-person consultation, blah, blah, blah. And I was like, that's cool. A consultation? I was like, I thought they called it an audition, but okay. And so I'm like emailing back and forth between this lady, and she was like, yeah, so just tell us a little bit about your undergraduate experience. And I was like, Miss, I'm 17. I don't have undergraduate experience. And so she was like, oh, there seems to be a problem here. And I was like, there doesn't there? And so finally we, fixed everything. And she sent me this confirmation email about an audition, an in-person audition, and I was like, okay, now this sounds more like what I thought I was going to hear. And so now, since I've given this woman such a hard time about just messing everything up, I was like, they literally gave me an audition, like a pity audition, and they just did it because they felt bad because I already booked my flight for this consultation that I had. And I was like, this whole experience is out of pity. Like I was never supposed to get an audition slot. Like she feels bad because I took up her time and they told me I was gonna have one. Anyways, all was said and done, and my parents and I flew to New York in I think it was February of 2016, and we stayed in Times Square because you have to do that. And we landed, and that night my mom and I went and saw The Color Purple revival on Broadway. And I swear to God, that is the reason that I had that musical installed enough inspiration in me to believe in myself to get into this school. So the very next day, it was snowing like crazy, and I had no idea. Like, it was only like my 3rd time in New York City, and I had no idea where anything was. And so we got a taxi the day of my audition, and it took us to NYU, and the whole time my mom was like, oh my gosh, Garrett, look at this, look at that. And I was just like, I had my eyes closed and I felt like I was going to vomit because I was so nervous. I have never been so nervous for an audition, I think, than this one. So finally we get to the school, and I go register and whatnot, and I go warm up and practice and all this stuff, and finally it's my turn, and I go into the room. And I had a very pleasant experience. There was nothing like super special about it, but there was nothing bad about it. Like, it was very like, okay, I'll sing this, and I sang it, and then they were like, thank you, and I walked out. And then somebody came running out after me, and I was just like, oh God. And they were like, hey, they want to see you again. And I went inside, and he was like, did you apply as a master's student? And I was just like, not this again, please. And so I had to get that settled with them. And after that was done, my parents and I left, and like we went and had lunch, and I was like, my parents were like, how did it go? And I was like, it was a fun experience. Like, we wiped our hands of that audition, and I was like, yep, going to school for math. Like, this was a great, fun experience. And so I had actually had my mindset on another school, because I honestly forgot that I auditioned for NYU, because I was like, there's no way that that's going to happen. And so I don't remember when decisions come out. I think it's April or May.
March or April, yeah.
Because I didn't apply early decision anywhere. So I think it was very end of March, yeah, or beginning of April. And so I had my mindset, I was going to go to this school in North Carolina, this little private college, like 45 minutes away from me. And like one of my best friends was going there, and I was like, this is it. This is what we're going to do. And then all of a sudden I got this email that NYU decisions were out, and I was like, oh my God, I literally forgot about them. And I opened the email, and it said that I got in, and I was like, what? I just was like in shock. And then I ran out, and my mom was pulling into the driveway at the same time that I got this email from work. And she was pulling it through the driveway, and I like ran outside, and I like had my phone, and she hadn't even gotten out of the car yet. And I was like, Mom, I got in. And she was like, where? And I told her, and she was like, oh shit. She's like, oh no, how are we going to do this? Because NYU is so expensive. And the financial package hadn't come out yet, but they were so generous in their financial offerings to me. So like my parents are so supportive and so amazing. And I could not be blessed with more amazing role models and friends than my parents. And so they made it work, and they let me go to NYU, because they sat me down and they were like, if we had this decision, like there's no question what we would do. Like, you're an 18-year-old kid, and like you have the opportunity to move to this city and start your own life in any way you want to. Like, who wouldn't want to do that? And I remembered I was on the couch, and I just started bawling, and I was like, you guys are the best, and this and this. And so got in, decided that's where I was gonna go, enrolled. And the first time I toured the school, because when I auditioned, I only saw the building and the room that I auditioned in. Move-in day was the first time I saw the school, like, period. I hadn't seen any of the campus, any of the buildings, none of the dorms. Like, move-in day was the first time any of my sweet little eyes had seen this stuff. And so I moved to the city, and I'm an only child, by the way. So I'm the only one. So I knew when my parents dropped me off, like, they had the dog, and that was it. And so I remember being so anxiety ridden, because I get very anxious when I know people are going to be sad, or when I know people are going to be upset. It's always something that's made me incredibly, incredibly anxious. So I remember, like, move-in day, I wanted to be so excited, and there was a part of me that was so excited, and I was just so optimistic and hopeful. I was like, this is like unreal, that this is like how my life is going to start. And I didn't know anybody at the school. Like, you know how some people like go to college, and, you know, some people from their high school go, or like they already kind of know their roommates beforehand. But I knew no one, and I was in a completely different part of the country that I have no family. Which honestly did not scare me. I don't know why it didn't scare me, but I was just so excited. And I remember we like went to the Kmart in Astor Place, and we went to the Bed Bath & Beyond, and we bought all this stuff. And finally it was like time for my parents to say goodbye. And I remember my mom just like, she only cried a little, but the whole time I was just like, oh my God, this is going to go so poorly. Like, I'm so scared. And it went okay. And, you know, we said our goodbyes, and they went to stay back in their hotel, and they left the next morning. But it was like instantly, like, I just felt like, oh my God, what am I supposed to do? Like, here I am in this dorm with nobody I know. My roommate hasn't even arrived yet. Like, am I just supposed to sit on my bed until somebody tells me what to do? But thankfully our welcome week was like super long, and we had all this stuff lined up, and I I can't even say it enough, but I have been so blessed with friends that I met through school, that are just like family to me. And I feel like it's just, I don't know. I know everybody finds their people, I feel like, in college, but I just feel so special and so blessed to have found the people that I found. Even if it took a couple years through college to find some of them, like, it's just like, it was so meant to be. And they're just the most wonderful people on the face of this earth. And I would do absolutely anything for them. And I feel like without them, I truly would not have they shaped who I was in just the most beautiful way. Like, every single person in my life just betters me in some way, shape, or form. And they just bring something so beautiful to my life. And I think the biggest thing that I want to highlight that I never really knew until, I would say, this pandemic is, I don't think I ever really experienced anxiety until I was like 20. Like, there were times where I was like, oh my gosh, like, I'm so nervous or this, but I don't think I ever actually fully experienced like debilitating anxiety. Because one of my really close family members deals with anxiety, like, is on antidepressants, and sees a counselor and stuff. And I've been with her through that whole journey. And so I think watching her, I just always only had something, so I just had like one thing to compare like anxiety and depression to. And so for such a long time, I was like, oh, like, I don't have that. Like, if that's anxiety and depression, like, I don't have that. And like, little did I know that it's just like such a monster. Like, it just comes in so many ways and shapes and forms and volumes and levels. Like, it's such an insane thing that I feel like everyone deals with. But like, when I was growing up, like, my mom and dad would ask me, like, do you ever feel like you are anxious or you deal with anxiety or depression? Like, we just want to check in. And I was always like, no, like, oh my gosh, like, I get nervous and like sad, but no. But I slowly started to realize, like, when I was, on my own and like more of kind of an adult than a teenager, that I definitely did deal with anxiety and do deal with anxiety and depression. It just comes so hand in hand with one another. But that was always such an interesting thing to me, because I feel like I experienced it. So I say so late. I feel like 20 is not like a super late age, but I feel like I dealt with it late in my mind. And even today, like, through the pandemic, especially, like, it's at an all-time high with so many people. And I have dealt with a lot of anxiety about, like, if theater, is this easy to shut down, and performing, is so, it's just dismissible. Like, what are we supposed to do? And so I graduated at home in May, because our school was let out in March. Like, right, the day that spring break started was basically the day they were like, yeah, school is all online now. So I moved home and I finished school at home back in, my childhood bedroom, my childhood home, and my childhood town. Like, it was just this really strange full circle. I feel like it was like, okay, I went away to camp for 3.5 years, and now, time to finish at home. And it was just this very strange experience. And at first I was so heartbroken about it, and I was so, I felt so lost, and I felt so hopeless and guilty. I was like I've taken all these years and I've really just held them for granted, and I miss it so much now. But I think after I got over the grief period of that, I'm like so thankful for the time that I had home, because it was just like this time that I had not planned to have with my family. And it was such a beautiful time for me to reconnect with my family. After all these experiences that I've had, and after starting a life that I finally feel like was my own, rather than like, because when I first started school, I was like, I'm taking all these classes and like, I'm doing great, and I'm still like a kid, and I got good grades here, and I'll be home for Christmas. And stuff like that. So I feel like I was finally like, okay, I'm not a student anymore. So this is now the time for like post-school adult-ish Garrett to reconnect with his family and actually, see where he stands in life. And so I spent a lot of time with my parents. I spent a lot of time with my cousins and my aunt and my uncle. And it was just such an eye-opening experience, I think, because I think college has helped me develop myself and my confidence and my own morals and beliefs in the world that may not align with some of my family members, which is totally okay when it comes to some things. Not Donald Trump. We don't talk about that. But it helped me. It was such a nice moment, or a period of couple months that I really needed. That was not carved out originally before COVID. But yeah, it was a beautiful couple months at home and just spending time with my mom and my dad, because I feel like I got so much closer to both of them while being away. I don't know why or how that could be possible, because I was so close with them before. But I feel so connected to them in a way that I never felt connected to them. And I think maybe it's just a maturity thing. Like, I just didn't understand when I was little, but it's like when adults say, oh, you don't know what $1 worth. Like, I feel like I know what $1 worth now. So they're like, good for you. And so I feel like I just relate to them so much more, and I have so many more things to talk about with them, and we can just discuss life, so it was such a beautiful time. And I came back to the city in the very, very end of July. Like, I think it was the last day of July, of 2020. And to come back to my apartment that me and my roommates all vacated for like months. And so I came back and I found a job, and I've been very blessed with a job, because even my mom is still on unemployment from it's been almost a year now, I think. I feel so thankful to have a job with stability and stable hours, stable paycheck. And it's so nice now, because all my friends are back finally. Except for Yumi, because she's living in Buffalo. But all my friends are back now. And it was just and also after, while being in school for performing, this is a huge thing I wanted to talk about, a huge, huge thing. While being in school for performing, I would say end of junior year into senior year, it was always okay, playtime's over. Now it's you have to audition and audition and audition and audition. And I had always been so anxious, and I knew the day was going to come where I was going to graduate, and it was going to be straight into auditions and a full-time job. I was going to have to make it both work. And I was, that's what you do, or you're looked down upon, or shame on you. You went to school for theater and you're not going to this audition. That's crazy. Why aren't you auditioning so much? And it was just oh my God, it was always this mind game where I was oh my God, another audition. I guess I will, because all my friends are doing it. But this time where theater I can't wait for it to come back. But this time to just focus on a job and saving money and making money is such a freeness of mind, because I was so caught up about having to balance the two right out of school. And the pandemic did bless me in a way that I can have some time to not have to immediately do that. And that when it opens back up, I think that it's going to be changed forever, the way of auditioning. I don't think that there's going to be, these cattle calls where there's 3 million people in a line in a room. I just don't think it's going to be quite like that anymore. Or at least I hope it's not. And it's just been so nice to be able to maybe feel I can prep for that and slowly step my foot back into it. And it's also helped me deal with the guilt of kind of not because I've been really artistically unmotivated during the pandemic too, which I have felt so guilty about. But you know, I think the support system around me has helped me really talk about that out loud and um, not feel so ashamed and so embarrassed and so guilty of just not really wanting to, because I see people and like kudos to them. I see people still like, you know, auditioning every day via self-tape, and I think that that's amazing, and like I wish I had that motivation, but I just don't, and like that's okay right now. Like it's okay. I like forgive myself for not. I know that hopefully once things open back up, hopefully I will get that motivation back. And if I don't right away, that's also okay. Like, you know, hopefully I have a long life to live, and I just want to do stuff that makes me happy. So that's been a nice blessing also to have. It's just like having the support system to allow me to not feel ashamed or embarrassed of what I want to do right now versus like what my mind is telling me I should be doing. Um, and so yeah, I feel like that's my personal story.
Thank you so much, Garrett. That was awesome. I'm loaded with questions right now.
Okay.
But overall, I wanted to say that you can really notice that you do believe that like a lot of these bad things or these problems that you would think people would have struggles with, your Tourette's, you know, just going through this period of time and coming out, you always kind of seem to come out looking at it as a blessing, which is an amazing trait to have. So I'd say that's awesome. But I do want to ask about when you did come out and you kind of labeled two stories about friends that maybe didn't handle it that well. I think it's important to kind of see were there any friends out there that really did it right? Like knew exactly what to say, knew exactly what to do, and if so, like what did they do? And if not, what can friends be doing when this happens to in their friend group?
Yeah, so I definitely did have. So I should have mentioned them. I definitely did have friends that were so supportive and just like, um, they just reacted to it so naturally, and it wasn't like they were scared of what I was going to do or what I was going to say. I do have a really close knit group of friends from home, being North Carolina, that I still talk to like today, on like a daily or weekly basis, and you know, like we were on the car, like on the way to the mall, and it's so dramatic. And I like turned down the volume. We were like blasting out to like some stupid song, and I like, turned the volume down, and I was like, guys, I have something to tell you, like as if I killed somebody. And they were like, oh my god, what? I'm scared. And I was just like, oh my god, I'm gay. And they were like, all right, and they turned the volume back up, and we just were like we just continued going to the mall. And you know, when we like parked the car and stuff, they're like, you know, are you okay? Like, you know, you don't have to ever be scared to tell us anything. Like, there's not anything you could do that would make us think of you differently. Like, we love you for you. We wouldn't care if you were, you know, a flower pot. Like, it's fine. And so their reaction was so nice. And then my cousin, so since I'm an only child, I have two girl cousins. They're like basically like sisters to me. Like we grew up so close, like spent every holiday, like not even holidays, like we just spent like all of our time together. Like we just grew up always with each other. So they're just like sisters to me. But I remember telling them, and they're a little younger than me, so I felt like when I initially told them, I did feel like a little embarrassed because I was like, oh my god, like the oldest is like exposing this vulnerable like part of himself that, you know, and I knew how they were going to react. Like I knew exactly beforehand, but when I told them, they were like, okay, like we don't care, like sure, that's fine. And so it's almost just like I think to your question, those are the stories that were like they reacted greatly, and you know it wasn't like this whole facade of like the bad experiences that I had. But I think a good way for friends to react is just to first like check in with the person who's exposing such a vulnerable part of themselves, and just being like, you know, like, are you okay? Like, how do you feel? You know, um, And then, you know, just showing like love and acceptance and support is always like just such a cherry on top of the, you know, the ice cream or the cake, however you say it. Just because it's so nice to be surrounded by that. So yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I totally relate to that because, you know, like I came out pretty late in my life. I came out like when I was like 26. So it was like I'm always inspired by like people who like came out like, you know, when they're in high school and stuff like that because that's bravery right there. You know, because I didn't have the guts to do that because I was like I grew up in such a masculine environment because I was an athlete, and then when I got to college, I was in a fraternity right away. So I grew up in a very, very masculine environment. I didn't know how to come out, and when it did come out, I like you were telling us about this is that like you didn't feel like you belonged anywhere, and I still feel that way because like I right now I have like zero gay friends still, like not even one because I feel like every time I would go to like a gay bar, like one gay bar would be like every time I would make friends they would be like, oh, you're not gay enough, and then when I go to another like gay group they're like, oh, you're too straight or whatever because you know, I only listen to a lot of rap songs, you know, I listen to a lot of Biggie, a lot of Tupac, and then, you know, I couldn't really put myself in like a gay environment, you know what I mean? So I'm still finding myself in like, you know, in the gay world. And I feel like you found that in yourself, and I'm like really inspired by you right now because like you kind of like found yourself in this, you know, in this environment, and it's just, you know, like in the gay world, it's like, people are very judgy, you know? So it's like, you think, it's like very dramatic. I'm just like, okay. So, but yeah, it's like, I'm very just inspired by you by that. It's just like, thank God, like, there's people like you out there. So, yeah.
I'm inspired by you.
I think
The gay community can be such a scary community. Like, they can be so judgmental and come with so much hate for one another. So I understand where that comes from because I also do. I am completely side by side with you on that. But I'm inspired by you. I'm your gay friend.
I think that what Peaks was saying about how like every aspect of your story, you come out sort of like with this great positive attitude about it, and that to me is really inspiring. And what you said about your Tourette's, how eventually you've even found kind of like joy in discovering like different ways that might manifest itself in you was really interesting. And I did grow up with a close family friend who had Tourette's, and it was severe Tourette's. So I was pretty aware, but seeing it now with people over social media and TikTok especially is so fascinating because like it is kind of like what you described. It's almost like people finding joy in something that could be taken so negatively, and it's like just exposing themselves and what they're dealing with, and like how it can be cooking an egg when you have Tourette's, and being in like, you know, exposing that side of themselves to all of these people who really are probably laughing along with the person or even at them, and being okay. Like it's just like such this new sort of like exposure to this diagnosis that I think we're just like approaching, and it's so interesting. And I mean, your Tourette's were physical, and I think it's just super interesting to hear you say that and then see it paralleled on like social media platforms right now.
Yeah, I agree.
It's pretty amazing. I really do think your outlook is fantastic. I do want to jump back. We don't have too much time left, and I just want to say that, you know, Paul, you were just talking with him about how you grew up in a masculine environment. I wonder, Garrett, to you, if like the heavy religion around you was at all a kind of a deterrent to come out because you weren't. I'm not sure if that is a thing amongst your friends, or whatever you're saying, but you said you were kind of the one off like liberal family in the area, and I wonder if that ever had a role. But I want to talk about that year. You said that dark year you had right before you came out, because I think it's very important for people to understand both the emotional and physical changes that happen to someone when depression kind of sets in. And it's just nice for people to know these things because it's easier to pay attention when you actually know what they are. So what are some things that kind of changed for you in that year? Sorry to make you relive it, but I do think it's important to
don't apologize. It's so important for others to find that they're not alone in that. But yeah, so within that year, I think the first thing I noticed is that I was just so incredibly irritable. Like I would just like snap like that because I always felt like I was on guard. Like I was always ready to fight and protect myself, just as if like I had like a diary like in hand. Like I was just always ready to like, you know, be like, why are you looking at me like why are you looking at me like that? Or why are you keep pestering me? Like and I was always so guarded, and I was just I was just so irritable. That's the first thing I noticed. And then my sleeping schedule changed a lot, and I think that really came with like the depression I was experiencing, because like I would just not sleep for such a long time, and because my mind was always just racing and racing and racing and racing, because I was always like, is this the right time to do it? Is this the right time to do it? Is this the right time to do it? Because still at this point, I hadn't really told it to myself and not been upset about hearing it myself. I gained a lot of weight because I was just like, I was eating with my emotions, I guess, like, because food has always been such a big part of my life. Like food is good. But yeah, I was turning to eating to feel comfortable and to protect myself. But I gained a lot of weight. Yeah, didn't sleep, was irritable. I didn't really want to hang out with friends anymore either. Like I just wanted to be alone, because I was like, if I'm alone, then there's no chance of, you know, me being in danger of exposing myself. So those were definitely the big key things I would say I dealt with when I was coming out. And there was never really a moment where I was like, okay, like all those are gone, like it's time to do this. Like it kind of just like I had to go through that in order to learn how to cope with those feelings and turn them into something else. Because I think had I just ignored those, I would have had a very different experience, and I don't think I would even be the same person I am today. So yeah, but it takes a long time, or it doesn't. It just depends who you are. Like each experience is so different, but like there's no one right or wrong way to do it. You know, it's that, and that's the beautiful thing about coming out, is that, you know, it's such an individualized experience for everyone.
Thank you so much. Sadly, I mean, I could do this all day. You have had me laughing like I was told in the bio, just about this whole time. So thank you for that. But before we go, Garrett, is there anything you'd like to plug? Anything you'd like to tell us about before we head off?
I don't think there's anything I'd like to plug. No, this is such a beautiful platform that you guys allow people to use. It was such an amazing experience.
It's literally not possible without you. So thank you just as much as you're thanking us, if not more. We really do appreciate it. And it was fantastic to meet you, Garrett. Thank you very much for everybody listening back at home, and we hope that we continue to change that mental health into mental wealth.
Yeah.